in all my life is what are you guys even doing on a sled? Is it even hard to drive a sled? And right now it's so cold, so it's going to be hard to really put these words out of my mouth because it's so freezing here. But welcome to Luge 101. Let's enter the classroom of a luge sled. So this is a beloved sled. Luckily we found one so we can show you. Usually if this was, and this will not be racing in the World Cup. That's why we're able to look at it, because athletes really protect their sled and don't let anyone look at it. So we are lucky that we have a sled to look at. So let's go through the anatomy of a Schlitten really quick, the German word for sled. So these are Kufens, these little curly guys. We have our runners underneath, our steels are the metal guys under there. We have our bridges right in here, and then this is our pod with handles. So this whole machine is how these athletes get down the track going 80 miles an hour. So here's the thing about it is every country has different technology and how they build their sleds. It's not like you can go to Honda and be like, hey, we want to buy the same sled as everyone else. Everyone actually makes their sled to them. So usually if you see sleds on TV, you'll see that all of this is covered. So you're not able to see really what's going on or what they're building inside of the sled. So for all intents and purposes, here's just a basic setup. So first, driving. How do you get a sled down a track? And yes, I'm here to inform you, we are not just laying there on the sled. There's a lot happening going down the track. Just want to fix my hair for a second so it's not in my face. So with this sled, this is how you drive. There's 4 ways to drive a sled. I'm gonna put my glove back on before I get frostbite out here. There's 4 ways to drive a sled. You drive with your head, your shoulders, your hands, and your feet. So when someone is laying in a sled, actually maybe I'll just lay in a sled. I haven't laid in a sled in a while, so it might be easier to explain if I'm sitting in it. So when an athlete is laying down and they come into a curve, they're first gonna turn their head, which then pushes their shoulder. So when they come into a curve, they turn their head, push their shoulder, pull this handle, and then drive with the outside foot. So each drive is like a certain degree or hardness, I guess, in a drive. So some curves require all 4 steers. Some curves require just a nice little head roll. Some curves and down the straightaways require just your hand. So the really good athletes are the ones that you can't tell that anything is happening. If you see an athlete kind of shifting around and they're like wiggling around, that's when you know that, I don't know, maybe they're not comfortable in the sled, and that's when the sled can actually go really slow. So when they're coming down, the whole point of getting down a track is which algorithm of steers it takes to get down every curve, and you have to memorize every single curve and how to do it, and you only have 50 seconds to figure this out. So there's a lot of pre-race prep. There's a lot of mind runs that athletes will do to kind of get themselves ready to go down a track. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that you should know about a sled. Okay, really quick, I want to talk about runners. This is also really important. While we're here and while we have a sled, this is what athletes work on the most, okay? So these runners right here, they're actually angled into the ice. They're not just flat. This is how athletes have grip into the ice. So think about it, it's kind of like skis. You know how when skiers will do pizza, it's kind of the same thing. So the inside edge is angled down, and that's how they have the most amount of grip. So athletes will spend hours sanding these steels just back and, I mean, this is PTSD doing this for you, but it's just back and forth all day. Sometimes dripping sweat because you're working so hard, your hands are black, and they'll normally start at a lower grit of sandpaper, work it all the way up until these babies are mirrors, and that's what coaches want to see. So if there's ever rust here, you get in trouble. You're never allowed to see rust on these steels. And yeah, so there's just a whole art, there's a whole science on how people do their steel work. And every country does it differently, and everybody likes different grip. Everybody likes, it's really particular to what athletes, to how they slide. And then here's another point right here. Here's a little, we call these gummies. I don't know if you can see, but this is kind of like a suspension. This is how the sled feels, how soft it is, how it reacts. And so there's just a whole formula on how to put these bad boys together. And then there's a whole other formula on how to get it down the track. So